On today's episode of Murfreesboro Storytellers, we travel to the end of North Manny Avenue to tour the most famous home in Murfreesboro, Oaklands Mansion. Oaklands was an important fixture in this community in the 1800s and played a role during the Civil War. Today, thousands visit this grand old home as it's one of the city's major historic attractions. Welcome to Storytellers. We're delighted to be coming to you from Oakland's historic house mansion located in downtown Murfreesboro. And our special guest today is James Manning, Executive Director of Oaklands. James, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Glad to be here.
How long have you been in this position with Oaklands?
It's been just over 11 years.
11 years.
Yes,
Made
sir.
a lot of progress during those years.
I hope so. I like to think that.
We're in some of the early history of Murfreesboro right here in this mansion. Tell us about how this mansion came to be. Who were the original owners?
Dr. James Manny, M-A-N-E-Y,
All right.
and his wife, Sally Hardy Murphy Manny. Sally's father was Colonel Hardy Murphy,
All right.
and this was her inheritance from her father, not the structure, but the land on which she and her husband built it. She inherited it in 1815, so this is the 200th anniversary of Sally's land inheritance.
So Manny Avenue leading up to the mansion was named for the Manny family as well.
Yes, sir. It was the driveway all the way to Lytle Street. And after the Civil War, they created the first subdivision in Murfreesboro called Manny's Addition, and now that's North Manny Avenue.
Will you be setting up a number of events to celebrate the anniversary of the building of the home?
Yes, sir. Throughout the next 5 years, because in 1820 is the first record we have of the Mannys living here because of the 1820 census. So if folks want to follow us on Facebook, look at our website, and hopefully become a member of Oaklands.
What is your website, by the way?
oaklandsmuseum.org.
Yeah, very good.
And you can become a member there. You can follow us online. You can sign up for the newsletter, and you can find out about all of these events that are going to be happening for the next 5 years.
James is a young boy living on North Church Street, not too many blocks away from here. A group of us used to come over here and play and have maneuvers, and I remember this house had just been decimated by vandalism, I presume. How did it get from there to somebody taking it, preserving it, and maintaining it and bringing it into the beautiful home that you have here now?
Well, in 1959, plans were made public to demolish the mansion. There were tennis courts and swimming pools on the grounds. Public housing was being developed behind it, and there was no plan to keep the mansion. And a group of ladies that wanted to save the mansion got together at the Women's Club, and they organized and they petitioned the city, and the city thought that that would be a benefit for tourism for the area, and they were glad for the ladies to tackle this preservation effort. They started with bake sales literally in the beginning, but they had workhouse help, and they did what they could to get it open for tours very quickly. And they were glad to be able to be an asset to the tourism of Rutherford County, and that's still the arrangement today.
Yes, I guess the Recreation Department swimming pool then eventually moved out from the area, and you had strictly the Oaklands property, I guess.
Yes, sir. Today, the grounds are known as Oaklands Park. It's owned by the city of Murfreesboro, not the mansion or the acre that it's on, but the rest of the grounds. And they're managed by Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation, and they do a beautiful job with our grounds. The grounds are a native tree arboretum. It's a natural spring, which of course is why the plantation was established here, was because of that spring. And then Oaklands Association owns the mansion, the visitor center, and the buildings here, and runs Oakland's Historic House Museum. So it's a great partnership between the city and Oakland's Association.
Where does your funding come from these days after having bake sales in the early years?
Fortunately, we're not having to have too many bake sales these days, but we get funding from the city, from the county, from private donations, from grants, and from membership. And that's the biggest thing that the community can do to help take part in the preservation for this building, and so that we can meet our mission to educate to preserve and preserve to educate in the future by becoming a member and attending events, to join in the preservation efforts with your membership dollars. And you can do that at our website, or come see us and take a tour.
What was the original size of the acreage for the plantation?
They started with just a small tract of land. In 1850, she inherited less than 200 acres. And from that, they were able to grow to 1,500 acres by the end of the by the beginning of the Civil War. It was a 1,500-acre plantation. This house was in sort of the front corner of the land. To get an idea of how it stretched, Northfield Boulevard was named for the Northfield of the plantation.
Okay.
Evergreen Cemetery started as the burial ground for the slaves of Oakland's plantation.
A lot of history then tied up there. That's very interesting. Didn't Congressman Bart Gordon, was he instrumental in getting grants to do some of the development here for the property as well?
Yes, sir. In the 90s, Mr. Gordon and some members of the community began talking about ways to improve the grounds here and to improve Oaklands Park. The ball fields that were here needed a lot of repair, and the pavilions did too. So they developed a plan to replace the infrastructure of the park to make it more in keeping with the historic nature of the mansion, and then to implement the native tree arboretum. So they planted all of the trees of Tennessee that are native, that will grow here in Middle Tennessee, and remove the exotic invasive plant life. Signs are placed, interpretive signs on the ground. So even if you don't come for a tour, you can walk the grounds of Oaklands Park anytime and learn about the Mannies and the plantation and how it went from a plantation to a park today.
Do we still have any of the Manny family living in this area? Any of their descendants?
Edie Manny is an artist that lives in Nashville. That's one of our members that comes to our events, and she's a close friend of ours, and she keeps us in contact with some of the other Manny descendants. Betty Manny, her sister, was a good friend of Oakland's and left an endowment for the museum to help perpetually care for this house.
Now you have a board of directors that oversees the operation of the mansion and the museum?
Yes, sir. Oakland's Association Board of Trustees is a group of 18, and they are the overseeing body of Oakland's Association, which operates Oakland's Historic House Museum, of which we have Oakland's Mansion, the primary piece. So many names to confuse everybody. It's funny though, we don't know what the Mannies called this place. We've not yet found a first-hand document that has Lewis or Adeline or James or Sally Manny referring to this property. We know that the Roberts, the Darrows, the Jatons that lived here after the Mannies referred to it as Oak Manor.
Oak Manor, okay. Now the Darrows were the successors to the Manny ownership, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir. George Darrow's family purchased Oakland's at auction. After Lewis Manny died, he left the plantation in the hands of his wife. She was already the owner. She had been left it and named by her father-in-law, Dr. James Manny. But Adeline wasn't able to keep the house after the Civil War. There was no slave labor to rebuild the plantation as it had been built, and they sold tracts to the city of Murfreesboro for Evergreen Cemetery. They developed Manny's Addition in front, and everybody that bought a lot on Manny's Addition had the right to Manny Spring. And so it was still supporting from the Native Americans that came here to the plantation that grew here to the first subdivision owners in Manny's Addition were all coming here because of the water of that spring.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about the mansion itself. And we're located in, would this be the living room where we're?
We call it the front
originated?
parlor, and
Front
that's how
parlor.
they would use it, yes, sir. And entertaining their best guests. This was the primary entertainment room in Oakland's Mansion from about 1858, we think is about the time they finished this room. We don't know exact date. And see, the Civil War was upon them very quickly, so they had only a few short years to enjoy this front addition on the mansion, which is everything you see when you come up the driveway. It was built by the second generation.
How many square feet in the house?
Just about 9,000.
Okay. And the other rooms, tell us a little bit about what else is here.
What's fascinating about the house is how it evolved and enlarged. The Mannies started with a 2-room brick structure, a hall and parlor house, and it's still here. Everything is still here. They built around it. In the 20s, they added on the 1820s, and in the 1830s and 40s, a second story to the original 2-room cabin and a back wing, all done by the first generation. But it was the second generation. When Dr. Manny's wife, Sally, passed away, he gave the plantation not to his son, but to his daughter-in-law, Rachel Adeline Cannon Manny. She was daughter of Governor Newton Cannon, the first Whig governor of the state of Tennessee. And she and her husband, Lewis, built this Italianate addition onto the front of the house just on the eve of the Civil War.
That's the same Cannon family for whom Cannonsburg is named, I presume.
Yes, sir. And Cannon County. Cannonsburg, the first name of this town. So you have the ancestors of the Murphrees, the Mannies, and the Cannons all coming together here. And so it's really a great way for people who are new to this area or just want to learn more about it to come here and learn about the founding of the city and the area.
How large of a kitchen area do you have here?
There's no kitchen anymore.
No kitchen.
There's not. The kitchen was demolished. When the ladies took on Oaklands to save the house, the kitchen had been converted to a garage.
Uh-oh.
The floor was gone, the roof had collapsed, and there just wasn't enough at that time to save. It's something we'd love to rebuild in the future. There's a root cellar and a kitchen behind the house. The foundation of the kitchen is underground, and the root cellar was dug up and restored by archaeological students and professors at MTSU in 1976. And today we're working on a drainage project to get water away from the foundation of the mansion. And a part of that project, we hope, will soon incorporate excavating the root cellar and restoring the structure above it so that students can learn more about food preservation here at Oaklands.
So the kitchen was a separate building from the original house then?
It was detached, only connected by a breezeway because of fire and heat. In the summertime, it was hot enough in the house without all the cooking that was done to take care of a plantation this large.
You mentioned the MTSU archaeological students. Do you have a lot of relationships with that department at MTSU and others to help you in
We're building
your program?
relationships with that department and maintaining relationships with many departments at MTSU. Right now we have Wedding Dresses Through the Decades exhibit, which is up and through March 8th, and that is in conjunction with the Department of Human Sciences at MTSU. We have tours from many of the different departments, students that are learning to interpret and to give tours and to tell history, or Parks and Recreation students, decorating students, architecture. It's amazing the different ways that we can incorporate the history of Oaklands into so many different areas. If the professors are interested and the program chairs are interested, we can make it work.
Okay, very good. Oaklands, I know, has a number of community events during the course of the year, I guess somewhat fundraisers, as well as bringing folks into the area and making them more familiar with what you have here.
All of our events are open to the public, and we do have membership, and we hope that anyone that wants to will join. All of our fundraising events are open to the public. We have a spring fiesta coming up the 1st of May. We have an annual Christmas gala here at Oaklands. You can find out information about that on our website or on Facebook or by giving us a call. We'd love to tell you more about it. Right now, Wedding Dresses Through the Decades is up to March 8th. We have a lot of educational programs. Antebellum Academy, School for Girls, Washington Training and Learning, and Autumn in the Oaks. There's really something for everybody.
That's good, wonderful. Tell us more about your board of directors for Oakland, some of the folks that are involved in that with your programs.
Well, our last Board of Trustees meeting, our recording secretary, Margie Weatherford, brought to us a photograph that we were so glad to have. It was of George Darrow, who owned this house, the first millionaire in Rutherford County, had the first car in the area. We thought we had a photograph of him, but never one that was identified until then. There's a lot of things out there in the community, and our Board of Trustees members are always out there as activists for us, helping us spread the word about Oaklands and helping us get more information too.
A photograph of Darrow here at the home?
No, he wasn't here. He was just standing in nature as a
Okay.
background. I'm not sure where he was, but he was identified. And we do have a photograph now that we know is him of here at the home.
Wonderful. And he later built a beautiful home on East Main Street, which still stands.
Yes, sir. He and his wife entertained quite a bit, and she wanted to be closer to town. Oaklands was a little bit far removed from Main Street.
In those days it was,
in
I'm
those
sure.
days. And they built a more modern house with a ballroom on the 3rd floor for their entertaining.
That's wonderful. A lot of history here with so many of the names that you mentioned are those that we've always known about over the years with the history of Murfreesboro, the Mannies, the Murphreys, the Darrows, so many others that have the ties back to this wonderful home.
Yes, sir. After the Darrows, the Roberts bought this house, and Robert Street in front is named for the family. Several generations of the Roberts women have been heavily involved in Oaklands in the preservation efforts through the years, and we, in this recent summer exhibit, we interpreted more of the history of the Darrows, the Roberts, and Jatons. Oaklands is restored to the 1860s period now. And so we don't on every tour talk much about the families that lived here after the Mannies, but through temporary exhibits such as the one that I was mentioning. We're able to tell more of the story of these families, and we found out more ancestry than we knew. And through that exhibit, we found interior photographs of the Roberts time here at Oaklands, photographs in the parlors and the upper halls that we had never seen before. There are so many things that members of the community might have that they just don't realize Oaklands would like to see. We can take photographs and scan them and give you the originals back. If you have a photograph that is something that in any decade that's fascinating about Oaklands or the grounds here that you or your family have enjoyed or that you've just found along the way, we'd love to share it with you.
So if anybody watching or listening has a photograph they'd like to share with you, what should they do? Give you a call?
Give me a call. Bring it by and let us scan it, and we'll give you the original back.
I'm sure you're right. There must be lots of photographs that are embedded in a lot of the families here that go way back and maybe not even be totally aware of their connection, say, to Oaklands, as a matter of fact.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's a lot of people that enjoyed the grounds in the park here. Maybe they've got photographs of the mansion before it was restored. Maybe they've got family photographs of taken on the grounds. There's so many different things that we'd like to share with our community and really let our community be a part of Oaklands.
James, you've referenced the wedding dress exhibit that is going on now at Oaklands, and tell us a little bit more about that, and then we'll move over and take a look at that.
This is the 4th year of an award-winning exhibit, Wedding Dresses Through the Decades. It starts with wedding gowns as early as the 1860s, and you progress around the room to the modern bride. And we have a Vera Wang dress this year for 2014, and the dresses are different every year. They're not all formal gowns. Some of them are simple dresses. Some of them are from other countries or from other areas, but most of them from Rutherford County, and most of them are members of the community right here that wanted to be a part of Oaklands, and they wanted to share in a new way that we have to reach out to our community. We learn more about their families, and we learn more about how that they would like to become involved here.
And there's a small admission charge, I believe, for the display.
The exhibit's $8, but if you take a tour of the mansion and the exhibit, you'll get a discount.
Okay, get your money's worth.
Yeah, we think so.
For sure.
If you don't think so, we'll refund your money.
I'm sure of that. Well, we've enjoyed talking with you, James. James Manning, the Executive Director of Oakland's Historic House Mansion and Museum. And we'll now move over to the other building, the Manning Hall, I believe, and we'll see the wedding dress exhibit. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the great job you're doing for Oaklands.
Thank you, sir. Glad to have you.
We've moved now from the mansion over to Manning House, and we're pleased to welcome Mary Beth Nevels, who is Educational Director for Oaklands. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Tell us about your duties as Educational Director.
Well, I plan the field trips that come to the mansion and to the grounds, and a lot of the programming that we offer to our community.
Manning Hall gives you opportunity for many different events, I would assume.
Well, it does. Right now we have our exhibit going, but we also have other opportunities. We have book signings and lecture series that we enjoy presenting, as well as it hosts weddings on the weekends and baby showers, family reunions, business meetings.
And I remember a lot of nice luncheons here in this room as well.
A lot of nice luncheons and dinners and Christmas parties.
Well, we're right now in Manning Hall, as I said, but you have a very, very special exhibit here, Wedding Dresses Through the Decades.
This is our 4th year.
How did this get started?
Well, it all kind of got started through Polly Ridley.
Wonderful.
She was on our board of directors and is a past regent, and she had just passed away. And we're sitting in the office talking about her and remembered seeing her wedding portrait hanging on the wall of her house. And in the winter months here at Oaklands, things slowed down a little bit. We were trying to think of maybe what we could do to occupy our time and the facility. And thought, well, what if we get her wedding dress and maybe a few of the other board members and put them out and let people come and see them. And so we started asking around, and they did not have Miss Polly's dress any longer, but we ended up with 25 gowns that first year.
Wonderful. And that's grown to how many now?
58 this year.
That's wonderful. They come from all over, different parts of the community? Or?
Well, they do. They come from all over the country, but they have community ties. It might be people that have lived here and moved on, or people who are new to Murfreesboro.
And they hear about it and then bring or send their dresses here for display?
They're placed on loan for the 8-week exhibit.
All right.
So they have gotten them out of the back of their closets and under their beds, and brought them to us, and then when we're done, we'll pack them back up nice and neat, and they'll take them back home.
Now, Oaklands owns a few of these dresses, is that correct?
We do. We own 5 or 6, and they're the only ones that repeat in the exhibit. All of the others are new every year.
New every year. Do they have ties back to Oakland's property originally, the ones that you own?
No, they don't. Just through the years, they've been donated to our collection. We have an archive, and we do have some wedding dresses, and then we have clothing from several different decades.
Any unusual dresses here? They're all beautiful.
Well, they are all beautiful, and they all have a different story.
Okay.
You know, we've had the pleasure to meet all of the brides and sit down with them and get their stories. And to be able to include those stories with the dress makes it even more special.
Very good. And a number of these people still living in the community, I presume.
Yes, yes, and they have been by to see their dresses, and they bring their children and grandchildren, because a wedding dress is not something you typically get out and show off.
True.
You keep it, you know, tucked away, nice and safe to preserve it. And so this is an opportunity to show their family.
I know you have a number of photographs too of their wedding occasion.
Whenever possible, we've included a photograph of the bride in their dress, and it's really nice to go back and see, especially the black and white photos, and you have the dresses next to them, and not all the dresses are white.
That's interesting. Now, you've been involved also with MTSU with this project, I believe.
Yes, this is the 4th year that they have partnered with us on the exhibit. It's the Department of Human Sciences.
All right.
And we have about half of the dress forms from their department. And then this year, for the first time, we have 3 dresses from their textile collection.
Oh, wonderful. And they will then go back to MTSU once
Yes.
the program is over then?
Yes.
What are the hours of your availability for visitors?
Well, the exhibit is open 7 days a week,
Okay.
Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4, and Sundays, 1 to 4. And we do have some Friday evenings that will keep it open until 8.
So admission to come and visit the display, right?
It's $8 per person.
Okay. Another fundraiser for Oaklands, I presume.
Well, it is, and it's the winter months when our visitors from out of town and around the country might not be out traveling. They're stuck at home, maybe in their areas.
Sure.
And so this is an opportunity for our local community to come and for us to share things that are going on here.
You mentioned dresses from around the country. Where would be the farthest distance away that you have a dress on display, you recall?
Well, the furthest is probably one that we happen to own, and it's from Canada.
Oh, okay.
It was donated to us several years ago, and it's from the 1890s.
Wonderful. Many of these dresses go back several years, I presume.
Our oldest dress on exhibit this year is 1847, and then it was worn again in 1907.
What is that connection locally?
The granddaughter of the bride who wore it in 1907 is the one that placed it on exhibit.
Okay. Well, that's just a wonderful exhibit with so many historical moments that are recorded here.
Yeah, everything from where they got married to maybe where they purchased their dress to maybe the people who came to visit from out of town. And all of those stories are what makes their day special.
I know you even have a part of a suit of one of your grooms in the past, I
We
believe.
do, and it's hard to get suits. Typically, you know, now they rent their tuxedo and they
Sure.
send them back. In the 40s and 50s, they would have maybe worn a suit or a uniform if they were in military, but their suits are not something they really kept back in the closet. It's what they wore to church and they wore to work. So to have a suit to show is a neat experience, and that's Mr. Bill Allen's, and a lot of people in the community know he and his wife, Miss Idley. So
Yeah,
it's
Bill
really,
Idley, right.
it's really nice to have his suit and her dress.
Any other interesting ties like that you have with any of the displays that are here?
Well, one of our past regents is Maricel Corlew.
Yes.
We're fortunate enough to have her dress this year, and then we also have her granddaughters, which she's our newlywed in the exhibit. She was just married in September 2014.
So you have several in here where there are more than one generation in the family, is that correct?
Yes, and several of the dresses were worn by mother and daughter.
Same dress?
Same dress.
Wonderful, yeah. That's a good use of the clothing then.
Well, wedding dresses can be timeless.
Absolutely. How long will your display continue on the calendar?
The exhibit runs through March the 8th.
All right. March the 8th, admission is $8.
$8,
And remind us of the hours again?
10 to 4, Monday through Saturday, 1 to 4 on Sundays. And if you miss it this year, we'll do it again next year
wonderful.
in January.
What do you have coming up after this display?
Well, we are getting ready for spring, and we have 2 events in May. We have our spring fundraiser, which is a party that will be held at the home of Ronnie and Donna Barrett. And then we're gearing up for our spring field trips. We have days of washing, turning, and learning where children will come and do hands-on chores of the 1800s.
All right, Mary Beth Nevels, the Educational Director for Oaklands, we thank you very much for joining us on our program and bringing us to wedding dresses through the decades. Thank you.
Thank you so much.